cube with a sphere. I'm going to go ahead and play this back. This is what we're going to be creating today. Pretty simple stuff. It's actually super easy to create this, so let's go ahead and hop into a new file. File, new, general. I'm going to save this one. Now I'm going to save this as Crush real quick. Save Blender file. Click on your cube, go into edit mode, subdivide it a few times. That should be fine. Make sure you have your cell fracture enabled, so go to your preferences, add-ons, type in cell fracture. Just make sure you have that checked so that we can do the next step. Go ahead and X out of that. With your cube selected, go to Object, Quick Effects, Cell Fracture. You can keep all these default settings and then press OK. And as you can see, it's going to go ahead and break your cube up into different fractured pieces. I'm going to go ahead and save at this point, and I'm going to hide our original cube so it's not clipping into everything else. Let's go ahead and add in a mesh, scale it up a bunch, and we're going to bring it underneath of our cube. That looks pretty good. Just make sure it's barely touching the bottom of that cube. Object, apply, scale. Now for our floor here, I'm just going to go ahead and give this a rigid body. Type passive, convex hull is fine, and you should be good to go right there. Now what we want to do is we actually want to give these parts of our sphere rigid bodies as well. So for this rigid body, I'm just going to add a rigid body type active, shape, convex hull, mass, 1 kilogram, that's fine. The goal here is to copy that over to everything else. So go ahead and scroll down all the way to your plane and make sure that you cannot select it. In order to do that, click this little drop down right here, select this arrow, and then you want to deselect the arrow under plane. Now when you highlight everything, you're not actually accidentally going to select your plane. I'm actually going to delete this light, get that out of the way. With our piece selected that we applied our rigid body to, shift click and highlight everything else. Object, rigid body, copy from active. Now everything should be working properly. So if we press play, it's all going to fall apart. But how do we make it look like the sphere is actually breaking it apart? Well, we're going to first add in a mesh sphere. We're going to move it up above everything else. Apply a rigid body to it. Type active, convex hull. I'm going to give it a mass of 10 kilograms. Now, we're going to go ahead and press play real quick. As you can see, everything falls apart before our sphere even hits anything. We want everything to fall apart as soon as our sphere is about to make contact. So around frame 7. So I'm going to pull up our timeline here. Make sure you guys can see everything down here. So around frame 7, we're going to want to activate our physics on our cell fracture. But before then, we don't want anything to be activated. So there's a really easy way to do this. You want to click on your rigid body right here. You want to unclick dynamic, right? So now if we play this back, do you see how that's just floating there? That is because the actual physics properties aren't going to apply until we actually animate that in. So I'm going to go ahead and keyframe dynamic right there, okay? I'm going to jump forward to frame 7. I'm going to check dynamic and insert a new keyframe. So now, if we go ahead and play this, around frame 7, this will begin to fall. Perfect. We want to do the same thing to everything else. But I don't want to have to go through and select every single one of these and animate them. Luckily, there's an easy way to do this in Blender. With our object selected, since we already have our keyframes applied to that, Shift-click everything else, Control-L, and you want to click on Link Animation Data. And now, everything should stay perfectly still until frame 7. Just like that. And that is pretty much it, guys. You now know how to basically freeze time until you're ready for everything to interact. And again, you can change your mass of your sphere here to 20 kilograms if you'd like. So it really kind of pushes through all those objects. And if you want more particles, redo your cell fracture and raise that amount of pieces that you're going to be generating. So guys, I think this looks pretty good. You can apply some materials and lighting, but overall, this is pretty much how you would crush a cube with a sphere. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope to see you in the next one.